Chapter 8, Lesson 1. Chapter 8, Part 1. Daisy must have seen Rowdy and me coming up through our fields because she was standing on the porch when we came walking up. With a frown on her face, she peered at us. Letting out a low whistle, she said, "Holy smokes, Jay Barry, what happened to you and Rowdy? Both of you look like you've been run through a briar patch." "Ah, Daisy," I said, "didn't anything happen to us. We just had a little fight with those monkeys and they bit us a few times, that's all." "A few times?" Daisy said. "It doesn't look like a few times to me. Looks like those monkeys just about ate you up this time." Before I could say anything else, Daisy turned and hollered through the open door of the house. "Mama, Mama, come and look at Jay Bear and Rowdy. They're chewed all to pieces and there's blood all over them." This time Mama must have been peeling potatoes when she heard Daisy yell because she still had one in her hand when she came flying out the door, scared half to death. "Blood?" Mama said in a quavering voice, looking at Daisy. "Who's bleeding?" "Jay Barry and Rowdy, Mama," Daisy said as she pointed with her hand. "Look at them. They look like they've been run through a briar patch." With more scare in her eyes than I have ever seen before, Mama looked at me and said, "Jay Barry, are you all right?" Mama," I said. "You know how Daisy is. She's just trying to make something big out of nothing. I'm all right. I just got bit a few times by those monkeys. That's all." Looking up toward the heavens, Mama closed her eyes and muttered something that no one could have understood. Daisy came over, took hold of my arm, and started looking at my monkey bites. Shaking her head and making a little clicking noise with her tongue, she said, "Jay Barry, I'm scared. I'm scared half to death." "Scared?" I said. "What are you scared of? Monkeys didn't bite you." "I don't care," Daisy said. "I'm scared just the same. We don't know anything about monkeys. For all we know, they may have hydrophobia." Hydrophobia, by the way, is another term for rabies, basically. It's rabies. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't get my mouth open. My stomach got all knotted up and I shivered a little like I was having a cold chill. I looked to Mama for some help. Mom couldn't help anyone right there and because she was just as scared as I was. She just stood there staring at me with her face as white as a hen's egg. Her mouth open and I thought she was going to say something, but nothing came out. People in the Cherokee Hills were so scared of hydrophobia they didn't talk about it in loud voices. They usually spoke about it in whispers. When news spread through the hills that a mad animal was prowling, windows and doors were locked. Everywhere the menfolks went, they carried their shotguns and rifles. Until the mad animal was taken care of, children were kept indoors and all stock was brought into the barn lot. While hanging around my grandpa's store, I had heard some weird tales about animals and people that had gone mad with hydrophobia. How they had frothed at the mouth and their eyes had turned as green as cucumbers. In the dark of the night, they would prowl through the country, yelling and moaning and biting everything that got close to them. It was enough to scare a fellow clean out of his britches. Daisy saw that she had me paralyzed with fear and she started carrying on again. "Mama, there's not but one thing we can do," she said. "We'll just have to chain him and Rowdy to a fence post." This seemed to shake some of the scare out of Mama. "Chain him to a fence post," she said in a loud voice. "Why, Daisy, what on earth are you saying?" "That's all we can do now, Mama," Daisy said. "That's all you can do with anything that's going mad. You have to chain them to something and watch them. If their eyes turn green and they start foaming at the mouth and biting things, then you'll know they're mad. It wouldn't do any good to tie him up with a rope. If he does go mad, he would gnaw right through a rope." Daisy had me so scared by now that I could almost feel myself frothing at the mouth and snapping at everything that got close to me. I think I would have gone mad for sure if Papa hadn't come walking up at the time. Frowning, Papa looked at Mama and said, "What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost." Before Mama could say anything, Daisy popped up and said, "It's Jay Barry again, Papa. He's really got himself into a mess this time. He and Rowdy got in a fight with those monkeys and got bitten all over. For all we know, they may have hydrophobia." "Papa," I cried, "they think I'm going mad and they're talking about chaining me to a fence post." Papa chuckled and said, "I don't think we'll have to do anything like that. Those monkeys belong to a circus and came in contact with people every day. They've probably been vaccinated for all kinds of diseases. A big circus like that wouldn't have taken a chance on having a bunch of sick monkeys around." Papa didn't know it, but he had practically brought me back from the grave. I began to feel a little better, but not very much. Regardless of what Papa had said, Daisy wasn't convinced that I wasn't going mad. "Just the same," she said, "I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to keep my eye on him, and I'm locking my door to the room every night. If he does go mad, I don't want him sneaking in and biting me." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Mama said. "Now that will be enough out of you, young lady. You shouldn't be saying things like that." Papa said, I think the best thing to do right now is to get something on those monkey bites. They could get infected. I think so too, Mama said. Daisy said, Mama, you Dr. J. Barry, and I'll take care of Rowdy. He wouldn't bite me even if he was going mad. Mama went in the house and came back with some clean rags, a bottle of peroxide, and some iodine. Every time Mama dabbed one of the bites with peroxide, I would have a dancing fit. But when she started putting that iodine on me, I yipped and hopped all over the place. By the time she was through, I felt like I had been boiled in a washpot. All the time Mama was doctoring me, I could hear Daisy cooing and talking to old Rowdy. He was whimpering and whining and licking Daisy's hand and begging her not to put that stinging, burning stuff on. Daisy was a little more artistic with her doctoring than Mama was. She wrapped Rowdy's monkey bites with all kinds of bright colored rags and tied them in bow knots. When she was through with him, he looked like a Christmas package. Rowdy took one look at himself and was so disgusted with what he saw, he scooted under the house. I couldn't help laughing a little. The next morning, I was so sore and stiff I couldn't get out of bed and made it to the breakfast table. I was lying there feeling sorry for myself and thinking about all that money down in the bottoms hopping around in those sycamore trees when Mama, Papa, and Daisy came into my room. Papa looked at me and asked, How do you feel? I don't feel so good, Papa. I said, I'm as sore and stiff as an old hound dog that had been chasing a fox all night. Daisy giggled and said, Jay Barry, if you think you're in bad shape, you should see old Rowdy. He's so sore and stiff he can't even wiggle his tail. He wouldn't come out from under the house to eat his breakfast. With a concerned look on her face, Mama reached over and placed her hand on my forehead. Why, Jay Barry, she said, you have a little fever. I think you had better forget about this monkey catching and stay in bed for a few days. The way I was feeling, I didn't even argue with Mama. As if my getting eaten up by the monkeys was one of the most wonderful things that had ever happened in our family, Daisy squealed her delight and said, Mama, if you're going to make him stay in bed for a few days, then I'll get to practice my Red Cross nursing on him again. When I heard Daisy mention that Red Cross nursing business, I started getting out of bed. Oh, no, you won't. I said, You're not practicing any of that stuff on me. I'm not sick enough to go through that again. Placing both of her hands on my shoulders, Mama pushed me back down in the bed and said, You just stay put, young man. Somebody has to doctor you, and besides, your little sister is a pretty good nurse. I wanted to argue, but knew that it was useless. To win an argument with both Mama and Daisy was unheard of. I figured that the misery won't last for only a couple of days, and I could put up with anything that long. This Red Cross nursing business had popped up about a year back when I had the mumps, and Daisy had read me a story about a Red Cross nurse. From the day she read that story, Daisy was bound and determined that she grew up where she was going to be a Red Cross nurse. She saved up enough money to order some material that was the same color as the Red Cross nurse's uniform. With Mama's help, she made a uniform, complete with an armband and a dinky little hat. It got to be a common sight to see Daisy fluttering around in her nurse's uniform, doctoring everything that was sick, and a lot of things that weren't sick at all. She took care of the pigs, chickens, calves, cats, birds, Rowdy, me, and everything else you could think of. She took care of all my busted toes, scratches, stone bruises, and boils. If I came down with a bad cold or the flu, Daisy would put on her uniform and go back to work. I never saw anything like it. Mama, Daisy said, do you think we could get old Rowdy into Jay Berry's room? If I had both of them in the same room, it sure would help a lot. That way I could watch both of them at the same time. Mama smiled and said, I don't know about that. If Rowdy is as sore and stiff as you say he is, the only way we could move him would be to carry him, and that old hound is pretty heavy. Daisy thought a second and said, Mama, we could put him in the wheelbarrow and roll him in. Yes, Mama said, nodding her head. We might be able to do that. I felt sorry for Rowdy, but there wasn't a thing in the world I could do about it. I didn't figure they could catch him anyway, but I was wrong. It wasn't long until I heard the screeching of our old wheelbarrow coming through the house. With Rowdy about half in the wheelbarrow and half hanging out, they wheeled him into my room. Daisy made a pallet for him over in the corner. The next time Daisy entered my room, she was all decked out in her nurse's uniform. It was starched as stiff as a gingerbread man. She had a tray in her hand. To me, it looked like she had all the medicine we had in the house on it. There was liniment, Raleigh salve, iodine, peroxide, castor oil, all kinds of clean rags torn in strips, several boxes of pills, and a glass half full of alcohol with a thermometer. Good morning, Daisy said, smiling over. And how are my patients this fine morning? "Oh, Daisy said, You didn't have to say that. You were here just 5 minutes ago. I know, Daisy said, but that's the way the nurses do it. Looking up to the ceiling and talking to myself, I said, "Brother, if I come out of this alive, I'll sure be lucky." Ignoring my remark, Daisy set the tray on the small table in the room and started looking over her nursing supplies. "Let's see now," she said. "I think I have just about everything I need right now." Rearing up on my elbows, I said, "Daisy, you think I'm going to take all that stuff? You're crazy. Well, I'd be dead before the sun goes down." As if she were the best doctor in the whole wide world, Daisy said, "Oh, I don't think you'll have to take all of it, Jay Berry. But I won't know just what medicine you need until I examine you." Taking the thermometer, Daisy gave it a good shaking, walked over and dabbed it in my mouth. She felt my pulse, changed all the bandages on my monkey bites, and washed my face with a cool rag. Then she lit into Rowdy. She changed all of his bandages, washed his face, and got him a pillow to lay his head on. I had to admit that Daisy was a pretty good nurse, but it always made me uncomfortable, lying there with her fussing around me that way. First time Daisy brought me a glass of water, I was thirsty and drank every drop of it. 5 minutes later, she brought me a second glass, and I drank it too. 5 minutes later, she brought me the third glass, and I drank it just to please her. It didn't seem like I had hardly drunk the third glass when she came with the fourth one. By this time, I was pretty well waterlogged and refused to drink it. With a scared look on her face, Daisy stepped back and said, "Jay Barry, are you sure you don't want any more water?" "Sure, I'm sure." I said, "What's the matter with you anyway?" Before I hardly knew what was taking place, Daisy yelled, "Mama, you better come here right now." Mama came running, scared half out of her wits. Looking at me and seeing that I was still alive, she looked at Daisy and said, "What's wrong now?" And we're going to say for the Chapter 8 Lesson 1 question that Daisy initially thought that what was wrong was that the internet was down at their house. Daisy initially thought that the internet was down at their house. That's the question for the Chapter 8 Lesson 1. Chapter 8 Part 1. Goodness gracious. Back to the reading. With a sorrowful look on her face, "I think we'd better get the change, Mama. He just quit drinking water, and you know what that means." "No," Mama said. "I'm afraid I don't know what it means. What does it mean?" "It means he's going mad, Mama," Daisy said. "That's what it means. I looked up the word hydrophobia in the dictionary, and it said very plainly that anything going mad refuses to drink water, and he just quit drinking." I figured that it was about time for me to say something, or I would surely have to drink the well dry or be chained to a fence post. "Mama," I all but shouted, "I haven't quit drinking water. I just can't drink anymore. She's brought me a glass of water every 5 minutes for an hour and a half. Had so much water now that I feel like a spring." Glancing at the glass of water Daisy held in her hand, Mama smiled and said, "I think we can forget about the change for a while. It may be that you're overdoing this water drink." That's the end of Chapter 8, Part 1.